Factoring polynomials by grouping. Up until now, we've had either 3-term or trinomials, like x squared plus 3x plus 2, or we've had some that have been 2 terms, like the difference of squares. But now we're going to deal with 4-term polynomials, because most polynomials over 4 terms aren't necessarily factorable, so 4 terms is about all we deal with. And sometimes we can factor them by factoring out something and factoring out something again. And so if you take a look at this 4-term polynomial, and you just look at the group of these first 2 and the last 2, you can see that in the first group there, we can take out a 2, and we can take out an x. And when we take out the 2 and the x, we're left with x plus 2y. We have the plus in between then. And if you look at the second group, they have a 7 in common, so we're going to take out the 7. And when we take the 7 out, we're going to have x plus 2y left over again. Now, isn't that convenient? X plus 2y and x plus 2y then are factors of the first term and the second term, because now we just have 2 terms. We have this term and we have this term. And they both have an x plus 2y in common, so I'm going to factor that out. And so what happens when I factor x plus 2y out? I'm factoring that out, and what's left when I do that? 2x, here's my sign, plus 7. So now I have factored this into 2 products that are binomials. Sometimes I need to rearrange before grouping. If you look at this, like the 8y, if we looked at this as a group, and I'm going to change this to plus a negative 8y here. If we looked at that as a group, an 8y plus 3, we don't have another 8y plus 3, so these aren't in the right order, because this would be 3y minus 8 maybe. So we want to rearrange these things sometimes so that we can group them a little bit better and recognize where things can be taken out. So notice the first term and the last term both have a 3 in common. So let's group this as 3y squared plus 3, and then the middle 2 terms both have an 8. And so negative 8y to the third minus 8y. So let those be our 2 groups. And again, I'm going to change that to a plus there so we can see what the 2 groups are added together. And so I want to take out a 3 out of this first group, and I'm going to be left with y squared plus 1. Please remember, you're dividing 3 off. And when you divide 3 off, you're left with 1. In the second term, since those are both negative and the first one are both positive, I'm going to take out a negative 8y. Because they also have a y in common. And what I'm left with then is y squared plus 1, because I took a negative 8y off of each of these. So there's where I got my y squared. And here, these both cancel out, those cancel out, so all I'm left with is 1. And then if you look at those again, what do they have in common? Well, you can see here's the y squared plus 1, here's the y squared plus 1. So I'm going to take that out. When I take it out, I divide it off. And they cancel. And what am I left with when that cancels? I'm left with 3 minus 8y. Now I have factored into 2 binomials again. Factoring with the greatest common factor. So we factored before where we had a greatest common factor. So if you recognize that there is a greatest common factor for all of the terms, you should take that out first and then factor afterwards in grouping. So on this first one, I know that 5 and a squared come out of all of those, because that one has an a squared, an a squared, a squared, a squared, and they all have 5 in them. So I'm going to take out a 5 a squared. So when I do that, I'm left with 9ab minus 15a plus, minus, how about 3a? And then plus 3a. B. No A. Just 3b. If it helps, write 5a squared underneath so you can see what cancels. So on this one, 5a squared cancels, and I'm left with minus 1. So now I've taken the 5a squared out, and I look at what's left. And if you look at the first term, you can factor out a 3a. So I'm going to factor out a 3a, and I'm left with 3b minus 1. I'm dividing 3a off of each of these. Plus, what can I factor out of the next one? Well, it's already the same, so I'm just going to put a 1 out here and the 3b minus 1. Because 1 times 3b minus 1 is still 3b minus 1, but I need to have it factored and a multiplication problem so I can take the 3b minus 1 out now. So now I'm going to do that. I'm going to take the 3b minus 1 out, and when I do that, it cancels off, and I'm left with 3a plus 1. Factoring with opposites. Again, you need to have your terms the same in order to factor them out. So here we had 3b minus 1 and 3b minus 1 to factor it out. And so if you do some factoring, like this one, if we factored the first two, we could take a 3a out, and we'd be left with ab minus 6, because I'm going to take 3a off of there. And here if we take a 30 and a negative 5ab, right away if we look at those, we know that if we take the 5 out, these are going to be in the wrong order. So what I want to do is flip these around, negative 5ab plus 30, and I actually want to take out a negative 5 out of here, because otherwise my terms will end up as negative ab plus 6, and I don't want opposite terms, so I'm going to take a negative 5 out of this and rewrite it in the correct order here. So if I take out a 5, I'm going to have ab minus 6, if I take out a negative 5. Because positive 30 divided by negative 5 is negative 6. And so again, now I have something in common, which is an ab minus 6. And what's left when I take that out is 3a minus 5. Okay, so you got to make sure that your terms are in the correct order, or that when you end up with opposite terms, you can just take a negative out and flip them around.